Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back again. It is Tuesday the 23rd, 3:47 p.m. And I wanted to start doing, I guess maybe like a series of this, but I wanted to start doing stuff where I get questions from people, friends, randoms, whomever, and I kind of answer them based off of how I see the world, my perspective on it, and we just kind of go from there on the whole thing. Last night I posted this question to everybody and threw it on Snapchat and said, throw me something that I could go and have fun with for a little conversation. And the best one that I got last night, honestly, was, do I believe in the male loneliness epidemic? Which is where men are, engrossed in like media, video games, and doing so much of other stuff that women don't really seem to want to deal with it. Or is it women's fault because they're trying to, pursue careers and they're trying to do their own thing and they're not needing men as much anymore in today's society as they used to? So let's go ahead and just kick right on into it. The first part of the question that was posed to me was, do I believe there's a male loneliness epidemic? And the answer is yes. I do think there's a lot of men, especially in the United States, that are generally just very lonely, it seems. I being one of them. I have friends and I do have, my family, and I have people that I can talk to, but deep down inside every single day, I still feel lonely. I hop on social media and I see a lot of people that are, having the time of their lives or are happy with their partner, and that does get to me sometimes too. Like, I'll sit here and I'll see it and I'm like, I wish I had that. I wish I could, be sitting here with my partner right now, whomever it may be out there, and we're sitting here chilling to the point where she's like, hey, let's go do something, anything for that matter. I would love to have that, but I don't. And I feel like a big part of that problem is social media, because it flushes so much of it into your face. It flaunts it almost. It's like, look at this person who, and a lot of times you'll see it too. And I hate to be this way because I hate to call people not attractive, but because that's a pretty subjective thing. So it's kind of hard to, make an argument off that. But you'll hear some guys even that'll do this, where they'll be on social media and they'll see some girl that is their type, very pretty, whatever, and they'll see the guy that they're dating and they'll be like, why am I not that person? Why that person? Why him and not me? Why am I so unlucky to not get this person? And that's a very, very big problem, because now you're having men think all the time they're the problem and that nobody wants them. The thing about it is the emotional support that men don't really receive. Prime example, I have a person that's my cousin that I text semi-regularly so we can keep up on each other and to kind of see how we are and where we're at. And the other day I texted her and said that I'm basically making this move. To the previous videos, you'll understand about how I'm going to be trying to get closer with this very certain person, who of which I still have not got an answer from, by the way. And instead of getting any real support in that moment, I got, that's a great idea for you. That's amazing. Sounds amazing. And I was like, okay, awesome. But now I am texting this person and saying, hey, I'm not receiving any answer. Like, what do you think I should do? Like, do you think I should kind of just call it? Do you think I should double text and see if they're cool? Whatever. And I'm not getting any answer at all. I'm not getting any emotional support at all about how I should feel, or if I'm tweaking, I guess, on any level with this person. And I also haven't gotten an answer from this person either, on a sense of how should I feel? I still haven't. So I have no emotional support there from this person. And you really want to talk to your parents or your guy friends and say this is what's going on, but sometimes people don't really have the answer, or they don't really talk too well about feelings and things and such like that. I talk to my dad sometimes, and he's smart, he's pretty emotionally intelligent, but he doesn't really seem to talking about it too much. And I feel like that's a very big problem. I feel like the more you don't want to talk about these things, the more and more it just builds up, further than what it's already become. We know the problems that can cause as well. This can push somebody to the very edge. This can push somebody to not really want to have any more friendships, relationships with anybody. This can push them to being completely isolated in their room all day, or just really not wanting to talk to people or be around people. When I was working at Amazon, I don't think I've ever felt any more lonely in my entire life. During that 2 months of time, I felt so lonely that it literally just felt like I was in limbo every day with nobody really around. Like, I have friends to get on Discord with. I have my family to talk to about my issues, but I would have so many issues and so many things that are going on, and I had nobody to really talk to because I'd see my therapist once a week, and they only want to talk for 45 minutes. And when I'm trying to explain things that are going on throughout the day or throughout the week, it's like, okay, let's go ahead and go a little faster so we can get everything down pat, and then we're going to try and do this little worksheet together. And then I'm going to tell you that you're smart, and then I'm going to leave after 45 minutes of conversation. And I would then try to talk to my parents about certain things that are going on, and I would just get, and this very phrase alone has made me not even want to talk to people anymore as far as my problems. Well, I don't know. That simple saying is enough for me to say, then I don't want to talk about it anymore. Because I'm not willing to sit there and talk to somebody about my issues to hear, well, I don't know. Constantly. Or I'll go talk to like anybody in the family, besides mom or dad, and I'll just start talking about my you seem to have so many issues. Why do you always have so many issues? What's that about? What's this about? Yada, yada, yada. And then it's like, I don't even want to talk to you guys about my issues anymore, about like how I feel or what's going on, because all I'm getting met with is like interrogation, or I'm getting met with somebody who's basically in my face telling me that I'm a constant issue on something. It's not that I'm the constant issue on things. It's that everything around me has problems and they can be fixed, yet they won't and can't be, it seems, because of how lazy everybody is. And so when I complain about it, everybody thinks I'm crazy, and so that falls on me. Hence why I don't want to talk about things, because why? I'll just feel like a fucking idiot talking all the time about the same things. So then I just back out of it, and then I feel lonely again. Society has made it more of a problem for male loneliness, because you have the women that are told that men need to toughen up, they need to they need to be better, they need to be stronger. But then you have the ones that don't want that, and so it's a constant battle of do I need to be better and a protector, and do I need to be whatever, or do I need to be more laid back and lenient and whatever. It's like you don't really know how to be, because you have social media kind of like psyoping the women out there to say like, oh, well, men aren't the same, or men are useless. Or there was a girl the other day I got into an argument with who was talking about men, and was like, it's like, well, why have all the men that I've dated, they're all trash? If they're all trash, then every man should be trash. According to her logic, that makes sense to her, but it's a super huge generalization. I posed it to her. I said, let's say you've dated 10 people ever in your 21 years of life. If you've dated 10 people and you're saying all 10 people are bad, and therefore all the other males out there must be trash as well, you're putting something in people's head to sit there and think, fuck man, are men really just like this bad? Has it gotten this bad? Like, do I even want to talk to women anymore? By the way they're acting like this, they obviously seem like they don't want to talk to us. And so it pushes such a huge problem out there, and it's honestly like propaganda, and I won't say who it's from, but people can kind of make up their own, assumption on that as well. But I mean, it's pretty clear who designed that flaw. And I wouldn't say it's men in itself, because it's more specific than that. It's very specific, actually. I can't say it because I'll get fucking banned, but they know who they are, and they know why they're pushing this. it's such a great agenda too, in order to disrupt the chain of there being man and woman and then creating life. There's such a problem with that now, and it's like men or sorry, it's like women are taught to like hate men now. And so then you got these men that are like stepping on eggshells constantly all the time everywhere they go. But most of them, or not most of them, but some of them are also just, they don't really care too much about that, which is really what you need. You need to not care about every single person's feelings, because it's not only just impossible, but it's just ridiculous. But that propaganda was spewed for great reason. It's not just to get the men, or to get the women to hate the men, and then vice versa. It's also to slow birthing rates, so that way the country just falls and falls faster. But I digress on just that point alone. Is it men's fault? Somewhat, yes, because they don't have the awareness to really be like, I need to go get help, or I need to kind of go out there and push myself to be better, or I need to be out there trying to be not just like introverted, but I need to get back out there in society a little bit more, so that way I can like really recognize how things are and not just be stuck in the bubble that social media is. But the other part of that question as well is it also women's fault as well? And I would have to say yes. I mean, it's obviously a two-sided coin, and it's a two-sided issue. Women don't really want to deal with the bullshit that men cause anymore. A lot of women don't really want to be around the men that don't want to communicate. They don't want to say anything, you know? Like, I used to not want to communicate for a while with this one girl that I was dating, and that eventually ended up leading her to practically cheat on me and be with somebody else. Now, that's not, I guess, like a correct answer, I guess, as to what you should do in that situation. If somebody's not communicating with you, it's never to go cheat. But it's stuff like that does make it worse. It's when women get tired of not being able to get through to people, and so they just kind of go off and do their own thing. And sometimes their answer to that problem, their solution to that problem, is to go to a very extreme solution to where it could possibly overthrow the last bit of sanity that the man has in his brain. But it's also like, I feel like they're also easily kind of like psyoped to believe that most men are this way. You know, I do know a lot of guys that have some trouble with expressing themselves and their feelings, but they do get there. It's just in their households coming up, it wasn't really, like, I guess, taught to them how to do so, you know, because you have like, my childhood wasn't bad, but when things were going wrong, it wasn't express your feelings. It was always like, we're going to leave it out. Like, we're going to like stop the argument. We're going to like walk away, and we're going to go and basically be sitting in silence, and we're never going to really resolve the issue. It's just going to be resolved through the quietness. And I always had an issue with that, because later on in life, that taught my brain to say, you need to over explain things to get the resolution that you never had. And so I feel like a lot of men aren't really taught how to do that, where it's like, express yourself, just say something, because it's a lot, it helps a lot more than you'd understand, because your brain it's like a defense mechanism, where it's like, if your brain is hurting that much and it doesn't know what to do, it's going to cry. It's going to try to shout. It's going to try to get it out, you know? And the better and the faster you get it out, the better you're going to end up feeling. You know, that's just the truth. Women also are getting more independency and freedom than they had before. So a lot of them are trying to pursue their own careers, go their own paths, do their own things. And to that, I say, good on you, because a lot of people are too scared to go out there and really do things that they're trying to set their mind on. And I feel like a lot of women, with all the oppression in the past of not having voting rights, not being able to get, their abortions done, which, that's a whole conversation for another day that I'll try to get into with the best I can do, even though I'm not as knowledgeable on it as others are. But it's certain things like that push them into this mindset to where they're like, I want to be more independent. I can do this. The men have done it for all this time, and women have shown, like Amelia Earhart, for example. Look what she did. She's still got her own record. She broke her own records as the first female pilot. Like, she was fucking amazing. She's a dog, dude. She's awesome. And you see stories about that, and you hear about those things, and you're like, I'm a woman, I can do the same fucking thing, and like, women can do amazing things. And so that's why they get this idea in their head that I'm going to try to pursue the career path and get the money and further my own benefits and goods, so that way I don't have to worry about another person. And I'll even agree with this as well. I agree with some women that actually doing that, because back to the point of some men not being able to express themselves, but it's also, fuck, I forgot what I was going to say, because I was trying to somehow tune into the music. Give me 1 second. Sorry, a little bit of a brain fart, but I got it. My point is that it's really hard, it's really hard to worry about your happiness while also worrying about someone else's at the same time. It's a very hard job. Trying to do that shit is difficult. Trying to make yourself happy every day, trying to figure out what really does make you happy and what gets you going and puts you in a positive attitude every day. But then also with somebody else who is either different than you just by a little bit, or might be vastly different than you. It might be like a complete and utter 180, which is like, for example, I had a girlfriend. Her name was Gemina. And I can tell you guys that I was probably a bigger problem to Gemina than I should have been. Honestly. Because I had a lot of issues, and making myself happy wasn't really easy. It's actually a pretty difficult thing, it seems to be. For me at least, being happy it's hard, because it's just a fleeting feeling. It goes away. It never stays. And I have always had a hard time with dealing with that. And when I was dating her, I can tell that I was probably putting a bigger strain on her than I should have been. I was trying to be a little bit better, and later on in the relationship, I was actually really working on myself more. But it should have been sooner, because had I been doing it sooner and really tried to like learn that and listen to it and just become emotionally intelligent more so than what I was, I could have prevented her hopping on a dating app, because she was stressed out that I was going to leave her. She told me this. She said it felt like you were wanting to do kind of like the same things, and it just felt like to me you didn't really want to be around me anymore, and you were getting tired of it, and that's why you kept doing the same things, so that way you can kind of just feel good. And that wasn't really the case. It was actually, like, at the time, I was trying to start building up the courage to really start doing more things out and about, and I just didn't know how to really come out and say that's what I wanted to do. And so I would get scared, and I would just kind of say, well, it's whatever you want to do, and we would just hang out here. And so I feel like I was the biggest driving factor and the reason why she got on that app and tried finding somebody new again, because I drove that away because I didn't know how to make myself happy, and she's trying to balance two people at once, and that's not an easy thing to do, and I don't blame her. You can obviously see how that would be such a problem, because instead of actually making more further communications and trying to see if that person really is going to change or not, it's I'm scared, so I'm going to go to the furthest extreme that I can go to besides actually sleeping with somebody. Now, had she told me that, I probably would have been more sick to my stomach than I kind of already was. But when time further, when time, started trotting along a little bit more and we were broken up, I actually sent her a message saying that I forgave her and that I was sorry that I was such a big fucking issue to her and shit. But like it's part of the reason like that, where her hopping on there thinking that I wasn't going to be trying any harder than I was, that really made me think like maybe I just don't need to be around anybody, and so that causes more of a problem. It produces another issue where it's like maybe you don't want to be in a relationship with a woman anymore. Maybe you don't even really want to be around some of your friends anymore. Maybe you want to start kind of cutting back time, or social time. It's like things like that really do take a toll. I think there is a serious problem with male loneliness, but it's definitely a double-sided coin. It's definitely something where it takes two to tango. It's not just men's faults. It's definitely women's faults as well. There's a lack of awareness on both sides, and there's a lack of communication on both sides. And I feel like there's a huge propaganda issue with it as well, especially with how the West has it. At least it definitely seems like Europe and the United States have a very serious issue with it, especially the United States. I mean, it's so prominent over here. I mean, it's unbelievable. But it's something that can't be like cured. You can't really like cure all of male loneliness, because that's probably impossible, of course. But it's not just like we need to promote men's mental health. It's way more than that. You need to have like classes in school that teach these people certain things. You need to have like a small psych course in high school where people are actually like sitting down and learning about certain things in psychology that might push them to be in this direction, or it might push them in this direction. And you need to really get kids to sit down and learn about that stuff, instead of just throwing them on social media. And they're too young to really make up their minds fully on things, to be like, well, it's men's faults, women's faults, whatever. It's really hard, man. Social media has become such a big problem on that. It's actually the biggest problem when it comes to male loneliness and the epidemic of that. So I would say that it's definitely a thing, but it's not just caused by any one person or any one group. The problem is caused by both groups. And that's the fact. It's a problem that can be dealt with better. It's not going to get solved, though. A lot of these things, especially loneliness, dude, you can't really solve loneliness. Not until like, even then, like, even if like you got like a family and kids, or like you found your career that you wanted to do and you're making money and you're doing your own things like that, like loneliness is still there. You're gonna catch it. It's a feeling. You know what I mean? Like it's just something that we've evolved to feeling over time, which is something I actually kind of want to talk about later on in the video. Maybe the bicameral mind theory. We'll kind of get into that, and how like we've evolved into thinking, that we're lonely and shit, which is kind of crazy in itself. But that's the video, boys. That's my answer to the question, is that I think there definitely is a male loneliness epidemic, 110%. And I feel like it's caused not by one group, it's by men and women combined. It's also a serious like issue with, the propaganda that's pushed out there to this issue as well. There isn't enough taught about mental health. It's just we need to promote it, we need to support them or whatever. There needs to be a lot more than just that. It needs to be actual conversations in schools and classes teaching people like how childhood trauma or things can, or just events going on in the world, like in just actual reality, that can cause you to be lonely, or that can cause you to think that women don't like you, or that you're never going to find anybody like that. There needs to be more things taught about this stuff, because if not, we're going to have this next generation of young men coming up and young women coming up where they're not going to want to have kids. Relationships are going to be very lust-based, or they're not going to last as long. We're going to have more single mothers and single fathers. We're going to have kids with no real homes. And you really don't want that, dude. You want kids to have the mom and dad in the home with a nice house, and their siblings together, where they're not going to two different homes and they're meeting two sets of people, where it's like basically like two different families. That kind of throws people off a little bit. Not me entirely, because I understand a lot of things like that, but I feel like kids especially, they don't need that, man. And I understand to a point, you know what I mean, but they don't deserve it, you know. And that's, there's so many problems with this issue, bro. I want to have to talk about it again one day, even further now than what we have, but it's definitely a real issue, guys, 110%. But that's what we got, boys. Later.